The girl in the snow was falling hard that night. Each flake touched the ground and melted into the white blanket already covering the earth. The small village lay silent, only the sound of the wind moving between the houses in that cold silence. An alien girl sat alone on a broken wooden stool. Her dress was torn and thin. It was never meant for the snow. Her arms and shoulders were shaking. She tried to pull the cloth tighter, but the icy wind cut through her body. Her skin was pale with strange purple marks, and her long hair was tangled by the storm. One of her legs was gone, replaced with a broken metal limb that creaked every time she moved. No one wanted to look at her. The people in the houses nearby closed their windows and doors. Their warm fires burned inside. But none of that warmth reached her. To them, she was broken, useless, and dangerous. They called her cursed. They whispered that she should have died long ago, but the girl did not leave. She had nowhere to go. Her family was gone. Her village had cast her out. She had wandered for days with no food, no roof, no friend. Now she sat outside in the snow, too tired to keep walking, too hopeless to believe anyone would care. Her stomach was empty, her body weak, but her spirit still clung to one wish, that someone, anyone, would see her as more than a burden. Her hands rested on her broken leg. The metal was cold, covered in rust and scratches. It had been given to her long ago, but no one had repaired it since. Every step caused her pain. Every night she prayed the snow would not claim her life. Tonight, she was not sure if those prayers mattered anymore. The wind grew stronger. It whipped her hair into her face. Her lips turned blue. She closed her eyes and whispered to herself, "Just one night. Just one warm place." The words were carried away by the storm, unheard by the villagers who chose not to see her. From the corner of her eye, she saw movement. A man was walking down the path. His boots crunched against the snow. He was human, tall, broad-shouldered, wrapped in a thick coat. He carried a small bag in one hand. His face was half hidden by the scarf around his neck. The girl lowered her head quickly. She had learned that when people saw her, they either laughed or threw stones, sometimes worse. Her heart beat faster as the man came closer. She told herself not to hope, not to look. Humans did not help creatures like her, but the man slowed down. His steps grew softer as he came near. For the first time in days, someone stopped to notice her. The girl kept her eyes on the snow, afraid of his gaze. He stood only a few feet away. The glow from the windows lit his face. He was frowning, not in anger, but in concern. His eyes studied her thin arms, her torn dress, the broken metal leg. For a long moment, he said nothing. The girl's chest tightened, waiting for the insults, the words she had heard too many times. Instead, the man asked, quietly but clearly, "Are you all right?" The girl froze. Her breath caught in her throat. She could not believe it. No one had asked her that in years. The words felt strange, almost like a dream. She raised her eyes slowly. Her gaze met his, and she saw no hatred there, only surprise and pity. Her voice cracked when she tried to answer. I'm fine," she lied. Her lips trembled. She lowered her head again. Afraid to meet his eyes too long, the man did not move. He stood in the snow, watching her carefully. Behind him, the storm howled louder, yet he seemed in no rush to leave. The girl thought of running, but her body was too weak. She thought of begging, but her pride held her back. Still, a part of her heart, small and fragile, whispered that maybe this human was different. Maybe he would not walk away like the rest. Her fingers tightened around her broken leg. The pain shot through her, reminding her of how helpless she was. She whispered again, barely loud enough to hear, "Just one night. Please." Her voice shook, almost lost in the snow. The man's eyes softened. He took a small step closer. The girl lifted her head in shock. The snow continued to fall, the world cold and uncaring. Yet in that moment, standing before her, was the first warmth she had felt in years. The human stranger, the human man, stood there in the snow. Looking at the broken girl, his breath made small clouds in the frozen air. His scarf was pulled tight, but his eyes stayed on her. He could not walk past her. Not like the others, something inside him whispered that this moment mattered. The villagers watched through their windows. Some whispered to their children to stay away from the window. Others shook their heads, muttering that the human was wasting his time. To them, the girl was cursed. An omen of suffering. No one wanted to be near her. But the man did not care about their whispers. He had seen many things in his life: hunger, pain, war, loss, yet the sight of the girl, alone in the snow with nothing but a broken leg and fading hope, stirred something inside him he could not ignore. The girl tried not to look at him. She was sure he would leave, just like all the others. Her chest tightened, waiting for cruel laughter or harsh words, but instead she heard his voice again. Low and steady, "You can't stay out here." Her eyes widened. She shook her head quickly. "I don't need help," she lied. Her voice cracked, and the cold made her words tremble. The man took another step forward. Snow crunched under his boots. He lowered his bag to the ground. "You'll freeze to death if you stay," he said. His tone was not harsh, but firm. The kind of voice that carried both strength and care. The girl turned her face away. Her hair fell across her cheeks, hiding the tears that threatened to fall. She wanted to believe him, but years of rejection had built a wall around her heart. "Why would you care?" she whispered, her voice almost lost to the storm. He heard it. His jaw tightened. He crouched down so his eyes were level with hers. The snowflakes landed on his dark hair and melted into water. He looked at her not with disgust, but with concern. "Because no one else does," he said simply. The girl's throat tightened. The words cut through her like fire. For so long she had begged silently for someone to see her. And now, here was this stranger, looking at her as if she mattered. She studied his face. His eyes were sharp but not cruel. His clothes were plain but warm. He was not rich, not powerful. But he carried himself like someone who had endured hardship. She wondered why someone like him would stop for someone like her. The villagers' whispers grew louder. Some opened their doors just enough to shout warnings. "Leave her, human," one voice called. "She will only bring you misfortune." Another hissed, "That girl is nothing but trouble." The girl flinched at the words. Shame burned her chest. She expected the man to listen, to walk away and save himself from her curse. But the man did not stand. He glanced once at the villagers, then back at her. His expression hardened with quiet defiance. "They don't know you," he said softly. "They don't know who you are." Her lips trembled. She whispered, "I'm nobody." He shook his head slowly. "You're someone," he said. His voice carried no doubt, no hesitation, only truth. The girl's hands shook as she gripped her broken metal leg. "I can't walk far," she admitted. Her voice broke. I can't keep going." For the first time in years, she let the truth spill out. Her body trembled. Not just from the cold, but from the weight of despair finally spoken. The man reached out his hand. His fingers hovered in the air, waiting. Not forcing, not demanding. "Then don't walk alone," he said. "Come with me." The girl's heart pounded. Her eyes locked on his hand. It seemed unreal, too kind, too dangerous. Every memory screamed at her not to trust, yet something deep inside, something still alive despite the years of pain, told her to try. She lifted her trembling hands slowly. Snowflakes clung to her fingers. For a moment, she stopped, afraid. Then she placed her hand in his. The warmth shocked her. His hand was rough from work. Strong but steady, he pulled her gently to her feet. Her metal leg groaned as she stood, but he did not flinch. He held her as if she was not broken, but whole. The villagers gasped. Some shut their doors in anger. Others shook their heads. The human is a fool. They muttered, he'll regret this. But the girl heard none of it, for the first time in so long. She was not alone. The man picked up his bag and steadied her with his arm. Come, he said. My fire is warm. Her chest filled with a strange feeling. Something she thought she had lost forever. Hope. The snow still fell. The wind still howled. But the moment she took that first step beside him, the world felt a little less cold. The invitation, the human guided the alien girl through the snow. His strong arm held her steady. Her broken metal leg sank into the white ground with each step, creaking under her weight. Yet the warmth of his hand kept her moving. She looked around. Nervously, the village was still watching. Eyes followed them from behind frosted windows. Some faces were filled with anger, others with fear. The girl lowered her head. Ashamed, she whispered. They will hate you for this. The man's voice was calm. Let them hate, he said. His tone was firm, not cruel, as if he had already decided. She glanced at him in disbelief. How could anyone speak such words for someone like her? The path curved through the narrow houses until they reached the edge of the village. There, standing against the storm, was a small stone house. Its roof was covered in snow, but orange light glowed warmly through the window. Smoke curled from the chimney, promising heat inside. The girl froze at the sight. Her breath caught in her throat. You're taking me inside?" she asked. Her voice trembled. Half of her expected him to laugh, to push her away at the last moment. But the man only nodded once. "Yes," he said, "inside." Her heart pounded. No one had ever invited her into their home. She had been turned away from every door, left to starve in the cold. Now, this stranger was offering her something she thought she would never have again: shelter. He opened the door, and the warmth rushed out to meet them. The fire inside crackled, filling the air with the smell of burning wood. The girl's skin prickled as the heat touched her frozen body. She stumbled at the threshold, unsure if she dared to enter. The man looked back at her. His eyes were steady, patient. "Come," he said. "This storm won't end soon." Her hands shook. She wanted to believe him, but her heart whispered warnings. What if it was a trick? What if once inside he turned cruel like the others? Fear battled against hope inside her chest. Finally, she took a shaky step forward. The wooden floor creaked under her weight. The heat wrapped around her like a blanket. Her eyes widened as she took in the room. It was simple, but alive with warmth. A fire burned in the stone fireplace, casting orange light across the walls. A table stood in the middle, with 2 chairs. On the shelves were jars of food, bread, and tools. The smell of soup drifted from a pot near the fire. Her body trembled harder. Not from cold, but from shock. She whispered, "It's beautiful." The man closed the door behind them, shutting out the howling wind. He set down his bag and removed his heavy coat. His movements were calm, almost ordinary, but to her, every moment felt unreal. "Sit," he said, pointing to a chair near the fire. She hesitated. I can't," she whispered. "Your home will be ruined if I sit here." He frowned slightly. "It's only a chair," he said. "And you need warmth more than my chair does?" Her chest tightened. Tears pricked her eyes. She lowered herself onto the chair. Her metal legs scraping softly, the heat from the fire touched her skin. And she almost cried out at the sensation. It felt too good, too rare. The man took a wooden bowl, filled it with soup, and placed it in front of her. The steam rose in the air, rich and inviting. "Eat," he said simply. She stared at it. Her hands shook as she reached out for a long time. No one had given her food without demanding something in return. she whispered. Why? He tilted his head. Why what? Why are you helping me? She asked. Her voice broke. She looked at the soup as if it might vanish if she blinked. The man's eyes softened. He sat across from her, folding his arms. Because you're cold and hungry, he answered. His tone carried no judgment, no hidden demand, just truth. Her heart pounded. The simple answer felt heavier than all the lies she had ever heard. She lifted the spoon with trembling fingers. The first taste was like fire melting the ice inside her. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she swallowed. The man said nothing. He only watched as she ate. Slowly at first, then faster. She tried to hide her shame, but hunger controlled her body. The soup disappeared too quickly. When she set the empty bowl down, her lips trembled. I don't understand, she whispered. No one has ever. She couldn't finish. Her voice choked. You don't need to understand tonight, he said. Just rest, eat, and be warm. The words wrapped around her like the fire's heat for the first time in years. She felt something close to safety. Yet deep inside, a small voice whispered, what if it doesn't last? She looked at him across the table, studying his face. He seemed ordinary, yet in this moment, he was more extraordinary than anyone she had ever known. The storm outside beat against the windows. But inside the little house, time seemed to stop. The girl who had once been left to die in the snow was now sitting by a fire, fed and sheltered. And she couldn't stop asking herself the same question. Why had this human chosen her? Asterisk. The first meal the fire crackled gently in the small stone house. Outside, the storm raged louder, but inside, everything was still, warm, and silent. The alien girl sat close to the hearth, her hands extended toward the flames. Her skin, once pale and frozen, now showed soft signs of color returning. She didn't speak, not because she had nothing to say, but because her throat still held the weight of disbelief. Her metal leg rested awkwardly beside her, wet from the melted snow. The man had placed a folded blanket beneath it, as if that part of her body deserved comfort too. The man moved quietly around the kitchen area, preparing more food. His motions were practiced and calm. He didn't speak much either, but his silence was not cold. It was peaceful, patient. The kind of silence that made her feel safe. She glanced at him as he stirred the pot of soup. His face was focused, but gentle. He didn't ask questions about her past. He didn't try to touch her or look at her in pity. That was the strangest part. He treated her like she was normal. She hadn't felt normal in years. He filled a second bowl with fresh soup and brought it to her. The girl looked up, surprised. Another one? She asked in a quiet voice. He nodded once, placing it on the small table near her chair. Eat, he said. You need strength. Her fingers shook as she lifted the spoon. The warmth touched her lips, and her chest ached with every swallow. Not from pain, but from the feeling of something she thought she had lost care. Tears ran down her cheeks again, but she didn't wipe them away. She let them fall freely. Her heart was too tired to hide anymore. You cry? The man said softly. Sitting across from her, she nodded without looking up. Because this doesn't feel real, she whispered. Because I'm afraid I'll wake up and still be outside in the snow. The man was quiet for a moment. Then he said, It's real. Those two words hit harder than any kindness she had ever received. The girl took another spoonful, then another. Her body slowly responded to the warmth inside her. Her limbs no longer felt like ice. Her head didn't spin as much. Her stomach, once tight with hunger, finally started to calm. She glanced at the man again. Why do you live alone? She asked. Her voice was soft, as if afraid to break the calm. The man looked into the fire. His eyes flickered with memory. I lost someone, he said, long ago. The girl nodded. She didn't ask more, because she understood that kind of loss. They sat together in silence. the fire between them like a wall and a bridge at the same time. Suddenly, the girl tried to stand. Her metal leg groaned, and she winced. The man moved to help. But she shook her head. "No," she said. "I have to clean the bowl." He raised an eyebrow. "You don't need to." "I know," she replied. "But I want to." She limped to the sink, her body still weak. Her leg made soft clanking sounds on the wooden floor, yet she held her head a little higher than before as she rinsed the bowl. She remembered how many times she had begged for scraps behind taverns and market stalls. Now she had eaten in a warm home, and it was because of a human who didn't even know her name. She turned toward him. "Do you always help strangers?" she asked. "Not always," he said. "Only the ones who look like they've been forgotten." Her breath caught in her throat. Those words, forgotten, felt too close. Too honest. She lowered her eyes. "That's what I am," she said. "Forgotten?" The man stood and walked over, stopping beside her. "Not anymore," he said. Her lips parted, but no words came. Her heart felt too full. He reached for a towel and gently handed it to her. "Your hands are shaking," he said. She took it. Drying her fingers slowly, her skin was still raw from the cold, but they were no longer numb. After she finished, he showed her a soft bed. In the corner of the room, it was small, but clean, with thick blankets and a pillow. She stared at it for a long time. "Is it really okay if I sleep here?" she asked. "Yes," he said. "It's yours tonight." She stepped toward the bed and sat down slowly. Her body sank into the blankets, and a small sigh escaped her lips. She had forgotten what softness felt like as she laid back. Her eyes began to close. "What's your name?" she asked sleepily. The man smiled slightly. "Call me whatever you want," he said. "Names don't matter tonight." She smiled faintly. Then, "Thank you, human," she whispered. And with that, she fell into the first peaceful sleep she'd had in years. The secret pain morning came slowly. The storm outside had softened, but the sky still looked heavy with snow. Inside the small stone house, the fire had burned low. Casting a soft orange glow across the room, the alien girl stirred beneath the warm blankets. Her eyes opened slowly, blinking against the light. For a moment, she forgot where she was. She expected the cold, the hunger, the hard ground. But instead, she felt warmth, softness, safety. Then she remembered the human, the fire, the food, the invitation. She sat up slowly. Her metal leg clanked against the wooden floor. She winced as pain shot up her thigh. The joint was stiff again, the socket bruised. She rubbed it gently, hiding her face as if ashamed of it. She had always hated that leg, not because it was metal, but because it reminded her of everything she had lost. Her real leg had been taken in an explosion during a raid on her village. After that, no one looked at her the same. She was a burden, damaged, less than whole. Even the other survivors had turned away. And now, even in a warm house with a kind human nearby, she still feared the same thing. Rejection. She heard movement in the other room. The human was awake. She quickly pulled the blanket over her leg, hiding it from view. Her cheeks burned. With shame, the door creaked, and the man stepped in. He held 2 mugs in his hands, steam rising from each. His eyes landed on her, and he gave a small smile. "Morning," he said. Offering her a mug, she took it carefully, her hands still trembling a little. The warmth seeped into her fingers. "Thank you," she whispered. They sat quietly for a while, sipping the warm drink. The girl kept a blanket over her lap, afraid he might ask about her leg, but he didn't. Instead, he said, "You slept through the night." She nodded slowly. "I haven't done that in years," she said, not without waking from fear or cold. He nodded too. "Good," he said simply. The silence between them was not awkward. It felt like calm, like rest, like breathing after holding your breath for too long, but her leg still ached, and the fear still sat in her chest. She had to say it before he changed his mind about her. "I can't work," she said suddenly, staring into her cup. "This leg. It's old, broken. Sometimes I can't even walk properly." Her voice cracked. "I'm useless." The human didn't respond right away. He took another sip, set his mug down, then stood up and walked over. She tensed, expecting him to walk away, to open the door and tell her to leave. Instead, he crouched down in front of her, gently placing his hand on the edge of the blanket. He looked up at her face and asked softly, "May I see it?" Her breath caught. Her first instinct was to say no, but the warmth in his eyes stopped her. Slowly, she nodded. Her fingers gripped the edge of the blanket and pulled it back, revealing the metal limb. It was a mess. The joints were rusted, the padding torn, wires stuck out in strange places. Parts of it were held together by scraps of old cloth. She looked away, unable to face his reaction. But he didn't flinch. He didn't stare in disgust. He simply studied it, like someone examining a machine with care. "Who built it for you?" he asked gently. "A scavenger," she whispered, "years ago. He gave it to me in exchange for my mother's necklace." The human nodded slowly. "It was a poor trade," he said. "You deserved better." Her eyes widened. She had never heard those words before. He stood up, walked to a drawer, and returned with a small toolbox. He knelt beside her again and opened it, revealing tools, wires, and replacement parts. Her heart jumped. You fix things?" "I used to repair machines in the colony," he said. "Still remember a thing or two." He reached out, and she flinched slightly. He paused, waiting. She took a shaky breath and nodded. With careful hands, he began to work. He removed the outer layer gently, like peeling back armor. He didn't rush, didn't pull or tug. She winced from time to time, but his touch was never cruel. Sparks flickered as he tightened screws, adjusted the gears, cleaned the joints. For the first time in years, the leg began to feel lighter. After an hour of silence, he leaned back and wiped his hands. "Try it now," he said. She stood slowly. The leg moved smoother, the pain less sharp. Her eyes filled with tears. It works," he smiled faintly. "It's not perfect, but it'll hurt less now." She sat back down and looked at him. "Why are you doing this?" He met her gaze. "Because someone should have done it long ago." Her throat tightened. She had no words, only the deep, silent feeling that something inside her had begun to heal too. The storm outside, the wind howled louder that evening, stronger than the night before. Snow slammed against the windows of the stone house, shaking the glass in its frame. The fire burned bright inside, casting flickering light across the walls. But something colder than snow was moving outside: fear and anger. The alien girl sat by the fire, her repaired leg tucked under a warm blanket. She held a mug in her hands, breathing in the warmth. Her body was healing, slowly, but inside her chest, a storm of doubt still rumbled. She looked toward the door. "They're still watching, aren't they?" she asked quietly. The human stood at the window, arms crossed. His face was unreadable. "Yes," he said. "They haven't stopped since I brought you in." The villagers hadn't forgotten. They had seen the broken girl enter his home, and they hadn't liked it. In the streets behind shutters and doors, they whispered, "She's a curse," one man had said. "She'll bring death to his house," said another. Children were warned not to go near. Fires were burned higher, as if to protect homes from something evil. But inside the house, the only thing burning was kindness. The girl shifted uncomfortably. "You don't have to keep me here," she said. "If they turn on you, it'll be my fault." The human turned toward her. His eyes were calm, but firm. "Let them turn," he said. "I'm not afraid of people who fear the wrong things." She blinked slowly. Her hands tightened around the mug. "Why do you keep standing up for me?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. He walked over to the fire, sat down across from her, and looked at the flames. "Because once, someone helped me when no one else did," he said. "And I never forgot what it felt like outside." The storm continued to howl. But another sound rose with it. Footsteps. The girl looked toward the door. Her body tensed. "Someone's coming," she whispered. The human nodded. He stood up and reached for his coat. Pulling it over his shoulders, a hard knock slammed. Against the door, he opened it slowly. 3 villagers stood there, snow covering their cloaks, faces twisted with concern and suspicion. One of them, an older man with sharp eyes, spoke first. "She's dangerous," he said, nodding toward the girl inside. "You're putting us all at risk." The human didn't blink. "She's cold, hungry, and hurt," he replied. "That's not dangerous. She's not like us," a younger woman said. "We don't know where she came from, what she's done." The third man, quieter but cruel in tone, added, "If something happens to the children here, the blood will be on your hands." The human's face tightened. "She's done nothing wrong," he said. "She's just trying to survive." "She's an outsider," the old man growled. "We don't trust outsiders." The human took a step forward. The snow blew in behind him, swirling between them. "Then maybe the problem isn't her," he said. "Maybe it's you." The villager stepped back, surprised by his calm defiance. "She stays," the human said. "And if anyone touches her, they'll answer to me," without waiting for a reply. He closed the door, firmly, but not in anger. He turned back to see the girl staring at him. Her eyes were wide and her lips parted in shock. "You didn't have to do that," she whispered. "They'll hate you." "They already do," he said with a shrug. "But that doesn't mean I stopped doing what's right." She lowered her gaze. Her voice cracked as she said, "No one has ever protected me like that." He sat beside her again, the fire warming. "Them both. Then it's about time someone did," he said. They didn't speak for a while after that. Outside, the footsteps faded back into the snow. But the message had been sent. The village was watching, and not kindly, the girl felt. Fear rise inside her again, not for herself, but for him. She whispered, "They could hurt you because of me." He looked at her gently. "They can try," he said, "but I've lived through worse that night." The girl didn't sleep right away. She stared at the fire for a long time. Thinking about the man who had opened his door to her, stood against his own people, and offered her a place when the world had turned away. The storm outside began to weaken, but inside her heart, something strong was growing. Trust and maybe, just maybe, the beginning of something more. Asterisk hope restored. The storm had passed. Morning light broke through the heavy clouds, casting golden rays across the snow-covered village. The wind had calmed, the air still sharp, but no longer biting. It was quiet outside, too quiet. Inside the small stone house, the alien girl stood by the door, wrapped in a thick coat the human had given her. Her repaired metal leg moved more smoothly now, each step still a little shaky, but no longer painful. She looked down at it, her fingers brushing the cool metal. Her voice was soft. "It doesn't hurt anymore." The human nodded from across the room. He was tightening the last bolt on a walking stick he had made for her. "It shouldn't," he said. "You deserve to walk without pain." She took the stick from him gently, her fingers wrapped around the smooth handle. She looked up at him and whispered, "Thank you." He shrugged. "You don't owe me anything," he said. "But if you want to step outside today, I'll walk with you." Her breath caught. "They'll be watching," she said. "They always watch." He smiled faintly, then let them. They stepped out together into the cold light of day. The snow crunched beneath their boots. The village was silent, but the windows were not empty. Curtains twitched, doors opened just a crack. Everyone saw them, the human and the alien girl who should have died in the storm, but she didn't die. She stood, tall and trembling, her broken body mended, her spirit not yet whole. But no longer shattered. Step by step, she walked through the village beside him. Some faces showed shock, others disbelief. A few showed something worse, anger. Still, they kept walking. Children peeked out, whispering to each other, "Is that her?" One asked, "She's walking," said another. The girl heard them, but didn't stop. She kept her eyes ahead, each footstep on the snow a silent act of defiance. One of the old women from the village stepped forward from her porch. Her voice was sharp. "What do you want from us now, girl?" The girl stopped, her shoulders tensed. But before she could speak, the human stepped forward. "She doesn't want anything from you," he said. "She's not here to beg, or steal, or curse. Your homes." The woman narrowed her eyes. "Then why is she here?" "To live," he replied, "same as the rest of us." Silence followed. The villagers stood frozen, uncertain. The girl took a slow step forward, then another. She looked around at the people who had once turned their backs on her. "I'm not here to bring pain," she said. Her voice was soft but steady. "I just wanted to feel warm, to be safe, to be seen." A younger man from the crowd stepped out. "She was dying in the snow," he said, "and none of us helped." Some looked down in shame. Others remained quiet. The girl's voice trembled now. "He helped me," she said, nodding toward the human when no one else would. She raised her metal leg slightly, letting them all see. "You called me cursed." "Broken," she said, "but he fixed me, not because I asked him to, but because he believed I mattered." The human stood beside her silently, letting her speak. "I'm not asking to be accepted," she continued. "I'm just asking not to be hated." One of the older men crossed his arms. "And what happens if something goes wrong, if she turns on us?" "She won't," the human said, his voice firm. "And if anything happens, I'll take responsibility." More silence followed. Then, slowly, something shifted. A young girl stepped out from behind her mother. She walked across the snow, carrying a small piece of bread in her hand. Her mother reached out to stop her, but it was too late. The child walked up to the alien girl and offered the bread with both hands. The alien girl stared at it, eyes wide, her lips parted, but no words came. The child looked up and smiled shyly. "You look hungry," she said. Tears welled up in the girl's eyes. She knelt slowly, her hand shaking as she took the bread. "Thank you," she whispered. The child nodded and ran back to her mother, who said nothing, just watched quietly. The villagers did not cheer, nor did they open their arms. But something had changed. They no longer looked at her like a monster. She turned back to the human. "Did you see that?" She whispered. He smiled. "I saw it," he said. Together, they walked back toward the little stone house. The path behind them marked not just by footprints, but by the first steps of forgiveness. The snow had not stopped falling, but it no longer felt cold, and in the warmth of one human's choice, hope had found its way back to her heart.